चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपा कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वापदान्तिकं। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरो श्रीयुतापदकमलं श्रीगुरून् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातां सहगणा रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपदान् सहगणा ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितां च। हे कृष्णा करुणा सिंधु दीनबंधु जगतपते गोपेशा गोपिका कांत राधा कांत नमस्तुते। तप्त कांचना गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्यैव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्णा चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंदा। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। कुं करोति वाचालं पंगुं लंघयते गिरिं यत्कृपा तमहं वन्दे श्रीगुरून् दीनतारिणं परमानन्दमाधवं श्रीचैतन्येश्वरम्। Welcome to all the devotees on behalf of ISKCON Farmington Hills. I'm going to quickly share my screen and then we will discuss today's Srimad Bhagavatam verse. I can share. I hope you are all able to see my screen. Wonderful. So before we start on Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 20 and Text 22, I want to give a caution that I'm not qualified to actually speak on this topic. It's a wonderful topic about Brahma's creation. I want to seek all of your blessings before we start. If there are, I'm going to repeat whatever I heard, but in case there are any inaccuracy or if my personal things comes into this, so please forgive me about that and just take the nectar from that. So we are reading Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 20, Text 22. Devata prabhayaya Divyan pramukhato srijat te ahar surdevayanto Vishrastam tam prabham ahaha. Devata prabhayaya Divyan pramukhato srijat te ahar surdevayanto Vishrtam tam prabham ahaha. Devata prabhayaya Divyan pramukhato srijat ta ahar surdevayanto Vishristam tam prabham ahaha. Word by word meaning. Devata, the demigods. Prabhaya, with the glory of the light. Yaha yaha, those who. Divyam, shining. Pramukhataha, chiefly. Asarjat, created. Te, they. Ahar suha, took possession of. Devayantaha, being active. Vishrishtam, separated. Tam, that. Prabham, effulgent form. Ahaha, daytime. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. He then created the chief demigods, which is Lord Brahma here, who were shining with the glory of goodness. He dropped before them the effulgent form of daytime, and the demigod sportingly took possession of it. Purport: demons were born from the creation of night, and the demigods were born from the creation of day. In other words, Demon like yakshas and rakshas are born of the quality of ignorance, and demigods are born of quality of goodness. So this is a beautiful verse. I'm going to unshare my screen now. Yeah, wonderful. So this is a beautiful verse. Um, just to give a context, we have been hearing wonderful katha from wonderful Vaishnavas in the temple and other devotees about this chapter. So we were just discussing about how Lord Varahadev um, actually killed Hiranyaks and then reestablished Mother Bhumi, right? And now after Mother Bhumi has been established in the orbit, Maitreya Muni is being talking to actually Vidura, and they are discussing about how Lord Brahma has started this creation. And we have been reading in terms of initially the demons were created, they took charge of those things. And now in this verse, we are talking about how devatas were created, right? Now, one of the important aspect which I was hearing is sometimes it may apparently look like, hey, how come maybe Lord Brahma did a mistake and that is how, first demons were created. He didn't want to create them, but they were created. That's not true. Because it is important that Lord Brahmaji is trying to follow the orders of Vishnu, Lord Krishna ultimately. He is involved in something which is so spiritual in nature, though apparently it looks like material, but everything is perfect. So we'll be discussing a few things on this topic today. So what we understand from this verse is that duality always exists in the material world, right? When we talk about duality, we talk about pleasure, pain. We talk about summer, winter. We talked about heat and cold, right? So duality exists in the material world. That is one of the important aspect of the material world, right? So we were reading how ignorance rose from Brahma, then Rakshas and Yakshasas manifest, right? And here we are talking about Devatas, right? In the very beginning of Brahma's creation, manifestation of demon represented by darkness and Devatas represented by the light, right? Even in our IT industry, we talk about binary form 0 and 1. So similarly, duality exists. So here we are talking about Devatas represent the light, right? We're just discussing about that. So polarity exists in the universe, not it's from the beginning, not that it just happened now, right? Now the question is, the good and bad exists. Why there is good and bad exists? Is it Lord wants some people to suffer and Lord wants some people to enjoy? No, it doesn't happen like that. It is all because of our desire and because of our previous activities. Based on the previous activities, someone is promoted to the heavenly planet, someone is taking the birth of a plant, someone is taking the birth of a deer, someone is taking the birth of a lion. Everything is based on our desire and based on our previous life's karma, right? So some living entities enter into the demonic species, right? It is not whimsical choice by Brahma. Oh, you know what, I don't like this guy, I will put him in this birth. It doesn't happen like that. It is all because of the karma and the desire, right? So different living entities enjoy their bodies based on their karmas. Like yakshas, they like to eat living entity. It's a source of enjoyment for them. Or for an example, you see, being a vegetarian, you see, the cat is killing the rat or lion is killing other animals. You feel, how can you do that? Or someone eating the meat, for a person who has never touched the meat in his life, for them, thinking that someone is eating a meat is, oh man, this is so ridiculous. And even when we become devotee, when we follow 4 regulative principles, Prabhupada talk about no illicit sex, no meat eating, right? He's talking about one of the important quality that one should not give suffering to the other living entities. But here we see yakshas actually eat living entities. We may feel it is so ridiculous, but for them, it is so regular. Like for a drunkard, drinking liquor is so natural. But for people who do not like to drink liquor, they're like, oh, this is such a ridiculous substance, right? So we may think it's a bad birth, but they enjoy it. There is a beautiful pastime which I want to share. Prabhupada talks in many morning talks. He talked about one time Lord Indra, who is actually the king of heavens, right? he was cursed to become a pig. So when he took the form or birth of a pig, he came to the material world and he had a family. Where was he living? He was not living in heavenly planets anymore. He was living in a muddy water, which is so ridiculous, surrounded by stool and many obnoxious substance. And there was a need that now Lord Indra has to come back to lead. Someone has to take in charge of the heavenly planet. So Lord Brahma apparently came there to convince Indra. By Lord's grace, somehow he remembered that he was Indra. So Lord Brahma called out, oh, you know what? Now it's time to come back. I'll take care of everything. You just please come now. What does Indra says? Oh man, I'm enjoying my life. Look at me. Here is my female pig wife. And then I have 2 kids here, or I have more kids here. I want to take care of it. This is such a wonderful place to be in. Where is he now? Leaving the luxury of heavenly planets, he is in the muddy gutter water and he thinks that I am at a perfect position. Lord Brahma says, we really need you. But Indra says, no, I'm not coming. This is a wonderful place to be in. And Lord Brahma had to arrange in such a way, one after the other, this whole family is being slaughtered. And now his turn comes for being slaughtered. And he realizes, oh man, I don't want to get in there. Actually, I was just contemplating on that. Isn't that our position is? We belong to spiritual world, not even just the heavenly planet. We belong to the spiritual world, but we are living here in the gutter water, thinking that this is the best place for me to stay. Look at my family. I'm taking care of them. I have a huge house. I have a wonderful luxurious car. I have a great job. We just try to live in a gutter life, thinking that this is the best of this nothing can be best or better than this one. Right? So similarly, when yakshas eat living entity, they feel this is the best place to be in. Right? And like I was speaking about, the living entity gets the birth based on their desire and karma. Very important. Every living entity, whatever position we are in, whatever position every living entity is in, is based on our desire and karma. These 2 things are very much linked together. Desires produce action, and action produces karma. So everything is initiated by our desire. Desire again are of two types. One is we want to enjoy. We want to enjoy unlimitedly without any restriction. Right? Which is raga and dvesha. And another one is to avoid suffering, which is dvesha. We do not want to have suffering in this world. We do not want to have suffering in this world. So the whole idea about human existence specifically is around enjoying. I want to enjoy. I want to enjoy. I want to enjoy. And I do not want any kind of suffering. And to avoid that suffering, we pay insurance, auto insurance, health insurance, mobile insurance, and so many types of insurance, travel insurance, right? What does it represent? That I do not want to suffer, right? The whole existence of human civilization is around this. I want to enjoy. Very interestingly, when we see the animal life, they don't understand any of that stuff. They are somehow surviving. Their whole existence is around survival, right? Prabhupada talks about eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. I was just reading the other day, Journey of Self-Discovery. Prabhupada is talking to one of the scientists. He's talking about, Swamiji, look at the scientific advancement. We are able to do X, Y, Z now. Prabhupada said, what difference does it make? It is just a sophisticated eating, sleeping, meeting, mating, and defending. There is no difference between animal and human. It is just the human form. It is more civilized, right? So, like I was telling, if we examine our life, it is all about ichha and dvesha, right? And we do activities which forces us to take certain body. For an example, a person who wants to expose their body, they take the birth of a tree. A person who would like to sleep, he takes the form of of a species who wants to sleep for a longer period of time. Right? What is our desire? We do not want to get karma. But unfortunately, thing is, we cannot see karma. Karma manifests in the form of a time. We can't see karma. We can't see the time. It just comes. We don't know when our activities or certain activities which we did, certain karma we did in this life or previous life or many, many lives before, we do not know when that is going to manifest. Right? So we were just discussing about desire produces action, action produces karma. And we get happiness and we want to avoid suffering. We look for immediate pleasure or pain, right? We start doing activities which increase our happiness and avoid distress. This is the whole existence around human civilization, right? But when we come to the higher living entities, devatas, they have a higher intelligence. What is that? There is a little bit transformation there. We don't have to struggle for survival. Now, we may not realize that we have to struggle for the survival until we get a pink slip sometime. Oh man, how I'm going to run my mortgage, how I'm going to pay my insurance, how I'm going to take care of my family, how I'm going to take care of my kids' college fees and everything, how I'm going to take care of my daily necessities of life. Right? But when we talk about these devatas, they do not have to struggle for survival. When I say survival, they don't have to work 9 to 5 or sometime 9 to 9. Right? The enjoyment part is the risky part there. Because what is the problem with the enjoyment? When we have unlimited enjoyment, when that is taken away, that puts us into a difficult spot. Right? We can't visualize what is we hear in Srimad Bhagavatam, what is the level of enjoyment devatas get, but it is very difficult to perceive. But if we take a human form of life, our thirst for enjoyment goes to the extreme measure. For an example, a house which is supposed to provide the shade, I want a bigger house, I want a bigger car, I want a luxurious car, I want XYZ for my luxury. Right? So we actually endeavor more for it and we actually get into that difficulty of working so hard. Right? So what is the difference between animal and human is the human being has a more capacity for more enjoyment. They can enjoy, but at the end of the day, they all fall into the 4 criteria, which is eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. We also have our karma. We also have our karma, our desire. And when we start performing the actions to accrue more and more things, our enjoyment becomes more. And that is a very dangerous part. Because what happens when we are accustomed to these luxuries, when we are accustomed to this higher enjoyment, when we are accustomed to more and more enjoyment, it actually puts us into a difficult spot to not take up Krishna consciousness or not to take spiritual life very seriously. And that is why what is being given, there are regulation given so that we live a controlled enjoyment life. That is why there is dharma. What is dharma? It's to control the urge to enjoy. So when we talk about dharma, artha, kama, and moksha, they work together. Right? So what is being recommended in the scriptures, when we perform our dharma, which is kind of the limits which define you. For an example, when you go on the freeway, when you go on the highway, there is a speed limit that you can go. You are at 70, you can go up to say 75. There is a margin given. But these rules are established so that we do not go wild west. Similarly here, dharma is given to restrict the enjoyment. Right? Dharma is given, one rule is to minimize the violence. Right? Violence is, even we want it or do not want it, it's part of our life. For an example, when we walk on the street, sometimes we put our feet on an ant and that ant dies. Or we even eat plants, right? We eat spinach, we eat so variety of vegetables, we kill them. So there is definitely a violence behind it. But the purpose is to actually minimize it. Right? So scriptures actually prescribe minimum violence. But most important part is, yes, violence is there, we cannot get away with the karma. We get smaller karmic result, but we still incur karma. Right? So what do we do for that? That is why Shastras mention about Panchamahayagna. What are these Panchamahayagna? That you read scriptures, you worship devatas, invite people into your home, you feed them, and Pitra's offering. That itself is not sometimes not being followed, or it's very difficult to follow in the material world. You see, most of the population don't even follow about that. So these are talking about smaller sins. There are bigger sins, or smaller mistakes and bigger sins. Now, how do you get away with the bigger sins? You do prashchitas. But it is a game of, like we talk about pseudo Christianity. Talks about, I go to church and I beg Jesus Christ, saying that, forgive me for my sins, and I go back and then I start doing incursions. So the desire to actually perform these activities does not go away. This is one thing Parikshit Maharaj asked. It is like a elephant taking hours and hours of bath, and then after coming out, he's just rolling in the dust. What is the point of taking a bath? Right? So what we see is Dharma tries to restrict and gives us some warnings. Right? You see, the age we are living in is Kali Yuga, where there is more tamas and little sattva. Now the question here is that when we talk about the analogy of an aeroplane, there is a runway. An aeroplane runs on the runway and then goes upward. So mode of sattva is like that runway. We need to come to the mode of sattva to practice bhakti and then climb up. We don't want to stay in the mode of sattva. But to come to mode of sattva, we being so much manipulated by mode of tamas and rajas, it is taking long time to come to sattva. Sometimes many births. So what was introduced was the varnashram dharma. When someone performs the varnashram dharma, which is all the rules of dharma, jivas, all living entities, can rise from tamas to sattvic stage. It works, no doubt, but it is really slow. Right? Today, we live in the age where we want everything fast thing. Fast food. I want a car which drives fast. I want the roads which can reach me to my work or reach me to home much faster. Right? Everything we need fast. So it's very difficult to actually follow varnashram dharma. Right? But the importance of mode of sattva is we understand we are not the material body, and then we begin some spiritual activities at that time. All of us know when we chant our rounds, we are so much in urge or so much in need of mode of sattva so that I can focus on my chanting. Right? Somehow our mind does not let us focus. But the whole idea of the material world is the matter is not perfect. But Lord provides an opportunity within matter itself to get out. So material world or the matter is not perfect, but Lord has arranged a loophole inside the matter to get out of this tendency of tamas and rajas. And that is the mode of sattva. Right? So Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, I prefer sattva over rajas and tamas. So if we come back to the verse here, devatas are sattva manifestation and rakshasas are tamasic manifestation. And when we have variety of living entity in material world, sometimes due to the nature of time and shifting of guna, tamas will rise and sometimes sattva rise. We know our regular life, we are so much manipulated by these three modes of material nature. Sometimes I'm not at all in the mode of goodness at all, but most of you sometimes struggle that you are most of the time in goodness, but sometimes one can be in mode of rajas and tamas. It keeps changing always, like an ocean wave. You see one wave coming and then it fades away, another one comes. So these three modes are continuously bombarding us to move or shift our consciousness, shift our thought process from one consciousness to another consciousness. Right? So One goes up and another comes back, right? We see in Srimad Bhagavatam, we see sometimes Devatas are ruling and sometimes Danavas are ruling. Why? Because these modes are always changing. When there is tamasic mode is at the peak, then Danav rules. But when the goodness is ruling, then Devatas rule. Right? So that's why we see there is always a war between Devatas and Danav. We see the example of Bali Maharaj. He rules initially, he is on the side of the Danavas and he actually defeats everyone. When Indra is actually does not offer respect to Brihaspati, he loses all his power. And here, Danavas, Bali Maharaj is being instructed by his spiritual master, you do Brahma Seva, you do the Seva of a Brahman. And when you do that, you will be empowered to actually be more powerful. And they became more powerful and they were able to defeat Devatas and they were ruling the world. And that's how Vamandeva appears to actually relieve the burden and also deliver Bali Maharaj from that situation. So continuously we are being bombarded. Even if we are in Sattvic situation like Swargaloka, demons come there and kick Devatas. Right? So even at the Brahmanical life, even in mode of goodness, sometimes tamasa comes. We see beautiful example of Ajamil in Srimad Bhagavatam. Perfect Brahmana. He has been taught Brahmanical culture from the childhood. He goes to the forest to serve his father because his father said, get some wood to actually cook food. He goes there and he sees a nasty scene of a prostitute enjoying with a person. He got distracted. That is the power of the guna and that is the power of guna, especially tamas and rajas. It just takes away our consciousness. That is why hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, reading Srimad Bhagavatam, coming in association of devotees is very important, even if 99% or 80% or 90% of our time goes working with people who are very thoroughly drained or drenched in tamas and rajas. What is the probability of us to come to the mode of goodness, right? It's very difficult. That is why we come in association of devotees as often as possible, so that we are influenced by mode of goodness to practice bhakti easily. Again, it's not the idea that we want to stay at the platform of goodness. Like for an example, if we compare the spiritual world, one desire we should have to go to spiritual world is very important because there are no gunas there. There are different kind of gunas there. It is pure bliss, right? Pure sattva, which is actually always taking us closer to Krishna, not away from Krishna, right? I was just thinking about it. We should have a strong desire, or we should cultivate the desire to go back to spiritual world, because this material world is full of frustrations. I was just thinking about it. I don't know about your frustration, but I'll just share how material world is so frustrating. So this is an year back, I decided, oh, you know what? I should have a backup plan if I'm kicked out of United States. So let me go to Canada. Oh, you know what? I'll have a backup option. I will have a PR. I don't have to figure out. I won't be kicked out. I don't have to go to India. Again, India is a beautiful place for spirituality, but there are few restrictions from a medical care and all that. So I want a backup option. So I moved to Canada. What happened? When I moved to Canada, I thought PR is going to be done in few months. What happened? There were multiple incidents happened. There were wars started happening. So Canada opened their gates for everyone. So they delayed the PR process. For most of the people who are living in Canada, they invited other countries' people. Oh, you come in, please come in. So it happened more than a year. PR did not go away. PR didn't happen. Okay, we are definitely living a life without Krishna conscious, without Radha Gopi Jana Vallabh and all of you, thinking that one day we quickly get visitor visa, we come back. Thinking that, oh, my life is going to go great. Like I remember when Nayan Sundari got a lung transplant in 2019, I was thinking, oh man, this is so great. Now we don't have to go through this ever again. That's a myth. This material world is designed to give us frustration. So what happened? All of a sudden, something happened in October. Her breathing started deteriorating. We reached out. We think that I was just mentioning last time, Toronto General Hospital is number 4 in the whole world. I was like, oh, they can handle this case, but they couldn't. So I came here, decided saying that I want to come and see the doctor here. We somehow reinstated the US health insurance. I came here, doctor fell. Oh man, she is in a very horrible condition. She needs to be admitted. Okay. What I did is I messaged Nayan Sundari's manager that she is admitted in the hospital. What happened? He called her manager or called the company, and the company terminated her. What does that mean? Which means the insurance is stopped. And now when we are there in the hospital, we need medicines, we need oxygen. When the hospital is requesting because there is no insurance, they can't get any of that stuff. What do I do? Okay, you're going to get Cobra, but when I'm going to get that, it's going to take a month and a half. Are we going to stay in the hospital? The hospital is nice. They said, oh, you know what? We don't want you to get out because nobody will let you in. So where do I go now? Right? In between, my company says, oh, I'll transfer your B1 to H1. And now the hospital feels, oh, you know what? The doctors feel that the existing lungs aren't working. She needs another transplant. So material world is continuously injecting the frustration in our life. It is just matter of time. We were just talking about karma, which manifests through the time. We don't know when is that time coming. Bhishmadev is being asked, Bhishmadev is saying in Canto 1, he's telling Pandavas, you are so pious. Why you have to go through this? This is all because of the time. They don't have to go through karma. They don't have any karma, but time is so powerful. It is taking us away from everything in this material world. That is why to cultivate the desire to go back to Krishna, cultivate the desire to go to the spiritual world is very important. Right? That is when we talk about having that strong desire to go back to spiritual world, this frustration actually helps us to go towards that goal. Now, when we talk about the dharma, artha, kama, and moksha, when we talk about specifically the moksha, that is actually the idea is I want to get away with the material miseries. And certainly it looks like I'm talking about that. One of the important aspects about Krishna consciousness is there is variety of shades. Right? For an example, we see a beautiful pastime of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. He comes to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He comes and brings a scripture. He said, here it is written Mukti Pade. It should be Bhakti Pade. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, why do you think so? He said, before I came in contact with you, I was actually preaching about Mukti, different varieties of Mukti. But now when I came in contact with you, I realized Bhakti is so wonderful. It is beyond Mukti. So I feel here it should be written as Bhakti Pade. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu corrected, saying that no, this is correct. It is said at Bhakti, the Mukti is automatically achieved. It is beyond Mukti. It is actually at the feet of Bhakti. That is what is being spoken. So we talk about, when we talk about Bhakti, one of the important quality of Bhakti is it does not restrict that we have to be on the platform of goodness. Bhakti itself can promote us from Rajas and Tamas to Sattva. That is the power of Bhakti. We don't have to follow the other principles we were talking about, Dharma, because Bhakti includes and surpasses all that stuff. Right? When we see chapter 7, I remember my Shiksha Guru, he would always put an acronym. So he put the acronym for chapter 7 is HP34MB. What is HP34MB? Hearing about Krishna. That is the first aspect. Second, perceiving Krishna. 3 modes of material nature, which is what we are discussing. The three modes of material nature actually takes us away from Krishna consciousness. One person can spend millions of life being in sattva without achieving bhakti. So sattva itself is insufficient. It's definitely a platform where we can practice bhakti properly. But if the purpose is not to do bhakti, purpose is to stay at sattva, is not going to help us. The purpose of aeroplane is not to just drive on the runway. It has to go up, right? So Lord gives us bhakti. Instead of dharma process for gradually elevation to sattva, we can cross over that. So when we talk about varnashram dharma is not intact, still process of bhakti is very effective. It is because bhakti is nirguna. It is not dependent on guna. It can elevate one to go even higher than sattva. Right? That is the how. Now the question is how it can be established. There are two ways. Let's talk about one first. Lord himself can come. Like Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to give us that pure bhakti. He brought bhakti within him. Right? So what did he introduce? He introduced Nama Sankirtan. Right? So there is Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself appeared to actually give that bhakti. Or bhakti is actually the treasure house of devotees. We always have devotees around. What happens actually, unfortunately, bhakti, though it is nirguna, but bhakta can be in any of these three gunas. How does that mean? Because we are influenced by that because of our material desires. We are not pure. We are not practicing bhakti in the form of pure bhakti. That is why when we talk about the three modes of material nature, they always attack us. Even while serving in the temple, I have a desire to get name and recognition. Even when I'm serving, I have a certain way to do those things. And when somebody else does in a different way, we don't like that. It is my way or highway. And then there are conflicts happen even at the spiritual platform. Not because of bhakti. It is because of our being influenced by mode of rajas and tamas. What should we aspire for? We should be aspire. And that is where devotees meditating on devotees' lotus feet. We should worship devotees. I'm just referring to myself. When we worship devotees, it actually never gives us the idea of rajas and tamas to actually think that I am superior to this person. I know better than him. I know how to better serve than him. Oh, he doesn't know how to make chapati. He does not know how to broom the floor. He does not know how to perform the aarti. He does not know how to sing. When we realize we are the servant of the servant and I'm supposed to worship all the Vaishnavas around me, then the superiority complexion does not come in. Right? So when we talk about coming to mode of sattva to chant the holy name, bhakti is nirguna. We talked about that. Right? And we can get bhakti by the mercy of devotees. Right? Lord Chaitanya actually advises Haridas Thakur to spread the holy name. One of the important activity in devotional service is to give bhakti to others because it helps us to grow deeper in bhakti. I'm grateful to Shyam Kishore Prabhu and all the other devotees who give me an opportunity to actually speak, because if I can't prepare for Srimad Bhagavatam, if I don't speak on Srimad Bhagavatam, I'm speaking mundane topics, which takes me towards Rajoguna and Tamoguna. That is why coming in association of devotees, coming in association of Srimad Bhagavatam, listening Srimad Bhagavatam, talking on Srimad Bhagavatam is very important. Like one of the quality which I see of our temple is a moment devotee is little stable, they are coming here and giving Srimad Bhagavatam class. Amazing. Not many temples have that opportunity to come and speak on Srimad Bhagavatam. Now one may say, this is the truth, that I'm not qualified to speak on Srimad Bhagavatam. But coming in contact with Srimad Bhagavatam gives me an opportunity to go beyond rajas and tamas. Because when we speak, when we contemplate, when we study, it gives deeper aspect of Srimad Bhagavatam which we do not realize otherwise. If we see an example about devotee, we are talking about Srila Prabhupada. Where is he coming? He is coming to Bowery, New York State, which is full of rajas and tamas, but he himself was not influenced, and he transformed those hippies, transformed the people to come to the mode of Shuddha Sattva. That is the power of bhakti, which we just take, at least if I talk about myself, I'm taking it so lightly. It can actually take us to Shuddha Sattva. We see the power of Harinam. Jagai and Madai, who were completely in mode of Rajas and Tamas, they were aparadhis. But Lord Nityananda Prabhu, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was so merciful upon them. They became transformed. Jagadananda and Madhavananda. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says to all the devotees, don't judge them based on their previous conditioning, how they were before. These were the same people who were hitting you and who were trying to actually rush towards you to kill you, but now they are transformed people. Don't think them the same way. One time, Srila Prabhupada was approached by another devotee, and he said, Prabhupada, this sannyasi is creating so much havoc. He is actually not qualified to be sannyasi. I just don't know what to do with him. Prabhupada said, yes, he is a rascal. And this devotee asked Prabhupada, so are you going to reject like Chaitanya Mahaprabhu did to Haridas, Chota Haridas Thakur? Chota Haridas? He said, that only Chaitanya Mahaprabhu can do. I cannot. I still love this rascal. That is the power of devotees. They are more merciful than the Lord himself. Taking the dust of their lotus feet is our aspiration. How can we serve them? That is the whole idea of Krishna consciousness, right? With that, I would like to end here, but before that, we would summarize what we discussed so far. So today we were discussing about Lord Brahma is creating devatas, or he is basically now trying to formate the daytime, which is the light, and demigods take the possession of it. We talked about there is a duality in this material world. And why there is duality? Because that is how the world is designed based on our desire and karma. Karma appears in the form of a time, right? We discuss about that. So desire manifests through the action, and action manifests through, desire is converted into action, and action performs karma, right? That's how we get karma. And we talked about different devotee. We gave an example about Indra. What is the problem with the enjoyment with this material world? Is that it is entangling. It does not let us realize there is something more or million times more than what the world we are living in. We are living in a gutter today. We don't realize there is a spiritual world, which is Chintamanida, full of bliss. Beyond these three modes is awaiting for us. We talked about how sattva is very important. But at the same time, staying at the mode of sattva does not make us go beyond that. That is why Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna, you grow above these three modes of material nature, right? We also talked about the example of Ajamil. And we also, why did we give the example of Ajamil? Because the three modes are always enacting. Even sometimes we are in mode of sattva, and tamas comes in and we are just completely dragged away, right? Then we also talked about how bhakti is superior than dharma, artha, kama, and moksha, right? We talked about that part, and at the end we talked about how devotees are more merciful than the Lord himself, why we should take bhakti so sincerely, not only at the platform of liberation to mukti, to get away with this material problems we have in the life, but to actually relish higher Krishna consciousness. These shades are, there are a variety of shades in Krishna consciousness. Every devotee is a different level. There is so much higher and higher rhymes to go on. When I was just thinking about when Prahlad Maharaj is saying, Vasudev Dutt is praying that you give me the miseries of everyone and then take them back to spiritual world. Krishna here, our problems themselves are so much. What to talk about taking the more problems or taking more frustration from other people in this material world? That is a very high consciousness to be in. We may not be at that level. We may not aspire for that, right? Like one example which we hear about, Kunti Maharani prays, you give me more and more trouble. We cannot pray like Kunti Maharani. She's at such a high platform. But we realize our level compared to these, we should not compare, but basically give us an aspiration where we are. Where we are, so that we aspire more and more to grow in Krishna consciousness. There is sky is the limit to grow in Krishna consciousness. So with this, I would like to end here. If anyone would like to add anything or any questions or comments here. Any questions here? Looks like no. Anyone would like to add anything here from a reflections perspective?
Hare Krishna. Pranam. Prabhuji, I just wanted to say thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you, Roji, for your kind words. I'm inspired by your wonderful devotional activities, your wonderful devotional attitude. Thank you so much. I'm so grateful to all of you, grateful to the temple devotees for giving me an opportunity to speak. One sincere request I have to all of you, please pray for us. So we understand this material world is full of frustration. Rather than trying to enjoy, we aspire to actually grow in bhakti and get away with this material platform and come to Shuddha Sattva. Thank you so much. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Dandavat Pranam. Jai Shri
Thank you
Prabhuji.
so much, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so
Prabhuji, I
much,
had a
Prabhuji.
question.
Go ahead, Sri Gaurangi Mataji.
So, Prabhuji, so many times we hear we do not sometimes aspire for pure bhakti, but our desire can be to stay on the just on the mode of goodness, right? You also touched base this point during the class. So, Prabhuji, can you give an example, like a practical example, how we are trying to stay at the level of goodness and not moving forward? Something very, very practical that sometimes I feel, is it accidentally we do that? Is it happening? Whenever we hear in a class, then this doubt comes. So I thought I'll just clarify, Prabhuji.
Mataji, that is a wonderful question. Thank you for asking that. I honestly do not know. I'll share what I heard. And I'll let Yugal Kishore Prabhu and other wonderful Vaishnavas who are more senior than me can answer that question. When we practice bhakti, when we talk about Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya, reading scriptures, I'll share you one example which I just saw recently. While I'm here in near Krishna's house in Grand Rapids, I was just seeing this and it just touched my heart. When I see the devotees here, they are literally filled with till the neck from a devotional service perspective. They have so many engagements throughout Sunday to Saturday, whatever we call it as. They don't have a time to do any other activity than that. They either chant, when I see Praveen Prabhu Mataji and then other devotees, they chant 32 rounds every day. They practice devotional service very sincerely. They want to serve Vaishnavas. One thing which I noticed, I want to share, because sometimes these Vaishnavas are around us, but we just miss to actually imbibe those qualities, or sometimes we miss to actually take the dust of their lotus feet. His Grace Shamanand Krishna Prabhu. So in Krishna's house here, every room is given a spiritual name. Like there are different places when we go on the Govardhan hill, like Prabhuji's room is Seva Kunj. The whole purpose around that is how can I serve? And when I was in the hospital and Shamanand Krishna Prabhu came there, he said, Prabhu, I'm not leaving the hospital. I'm just going to stay here. Prabhu, and he called other devotees and Prabhu, I won't be able to give the class today. Can you take care of this seva? Can you take care of this seva? I was so touched with that attitude. Though I am in the hospital, I am affected by mode of tamas, but a person, though living next to me, standing next to me, is not being affected by tamas. What is that difference? Same place, same circumstances. That person is next to me, but is not affected by mode of tamas. Because the attitude of service is so important that we always think about how can I serve. And the power of devotees, when we serve the devotees, somehow Krishna empowers us to be beyond these three modes of material nature. That person is beyond that, right? One of the important quality which I was remembering when we were in the hospital, now it's important that practicing Krishna consciousness is not easy. Why it is not easy? Yes, there are 4 regulative principles to follow. There we have to always remain at the higher platform. He would send breakfast, lunch, and dinner every time, and not just for sake of sending breakfast, lunch, and dinner. He would send specifically every meal will have juice. And what kind of juice? Which helps us to actually, which help Nayan Sundari to grow. Her health should improve. Like for an example, her hemoglobin was low, so she needs that. Now, I'm preparing the food, I'm preparing the prasad. However, because I am beyond, when I'm saying I'm talking about His Grace Shamanand Krishna Prabhu, when I'm beyond these 3 modes of material nature, the person who is eating that prasadam is also, this prasadam is helping him to go beyond that. The point which I'm trying to bring in, please forgive me if I'm not clear, but when I'm talking about, and this is my realization, and I would really need some correction or whatever His Grace Yugal Kishore Prabhu wants to add on that. When we actually serve the devotees, Krishna empower us to actually grow above the 3 modes of material nature. That is the power of blessings. That is the power of when we please Vaishnavas, that prayer, that gratitude comes from the heart that helps that devotee to grow beyond the modes of material nature. So one is to actually practice bhakti when we do at our home. We take care of deities, we take care of our kids, we take care of other activities in our spiritual life. That is definitely taking us beyond the mode of goodness. But more than that, when we serve Vaishnavas, when they bless, it is like I am driving at the speed of 40 and then I get a power to drive at the speed of 300 miles per hour or per minute, whatever we call it as. That blessing is what we should yearn for. That should help us to grow about the modes of 3 modes of material nature. Because most of the time what we do is we try to actually, it is very difficult, but we remember this instruction, I want to be at mode of sattva, but we cannot do it ourselves. We need a higher power. When I'm drowning in the ocean of these 3 modes of material nature, I need someone who is beyond that. So there are 2 things which is important, a person Bhagavat and book Bhagavat. Person Bhagavat, yes, there are pure devotees, but any devotee who is sincerely practicing Krishna consciousness is also a book Bhagavat for us. So that is what I personally, I think when we serve devotees in the mood of the servant, when we please them, they shower us blessing and that helps us to grow or stay at the mood of sattva and then grow beyond that. That is my understanding. Madhavi, would you like to add something there?
No, Prabhuji, thank you so much for the reinstatement of that instruction. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Madhavi. Anyone else wants to add on that question, please? That is you as well. Would you like to add something here? Okay.
No, Prabhuji, very well answered. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Samaveda Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Thank you so much for your kind attention. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Prabhuji. Wonderful class. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.